It's a game which actually has map design. That means every map is different. Every map has different intricacies of objectives, enemy spawning, and movement. You know what game doesn't have map design? Their latest game, Space Marine 2, it has no map design. Every single map is the same. Every encounter is the same. Every objective is almost the same. And therefore, that game is boring. This is why map design is such a huge aspect in gaming and designing a game, because the better your map design is, the more lifetime the game has, because you create so many different options of gameplay that you have more replayability. So let's talk about the good and the bad things about map design, like what maps are good and what maps are bad. A good map has a lot of replayability. It is much more chaotic. For example, New York 4. It is a very chaotic map at the end, and even from the beginning, it's very chaotic. Anything can happen, especially with randoms. At the start, when you start playing the game, these maps are very hard to play. The chaotic and maps which have very high replayability. As you get better at the game, when you have like thousands and thousands of hours in the game, I mean, let's say 1000 hours, when you have 1000 hour in a game, then these maps with replayability and chaotic are more fun to play. And this is what I realized. For example, with New York 4, at the start I had a lot of trouble with this map, and everyone has problem with New York 4 map. But as you spend more time, like 500 hours, 1000 hours, then you start to realize that this map is actually fun because there's so much chaos going on. To make the map more replayable and chaotic, you have to allow a lot of movement options and difficulties and enemies and proper spawning. The objectives and the enemy spawning shouldn't be really scripted, like it should be all random. And anything can happen. That's how the game should be. This is why New York 4 is so chaotic at the end, because a screamers can spawn, the objectives can change around, and therefore every run is going to be a different thing. This is why the map has more replayability, because there is chaos in the map and every run is different. If every run and every enemy spawn and objective were to be scripted, then that is not fun. Then you play the map once or twice and then get bored of it, and you only play the game for grinding, which is not fun. Fun is when you play the game for more interesting gameplay. And the only way that is possible is to make a map very replayable and chaotic. So I have talked about these points down there, like movement options. So another example of good movement options related map is Jerusalem 1, the Green Gold's house. This map particularly has a lot of movement options, like to go inside and out, like barricading. Then you have this road as well outside. Then you have the balcony and then jumping down. Then you go to the side where there is a hospital. The map is kind of bigger just because it allows a lot of movement options. And you have a lot of kiting, and then you have way to bypass and create distance between enemies, which is really fun to watch when people do that instead of just camping in one spot and shooting enemies in one directions, which is not going to be fun. So allowing a lot of movement options adds a lot of more interesting gameplay, and every run is going to be different. That the game and the map actually allows you to try different options and make your gameplay more interesting and have more variety. Variety is always good in gaming because it adds more lifetime in the game. If every single map were to be like moving from point A to B, like in Space Marine 2, and every single spawn is scripted, then there is no fun because everything is going to be monotonous and every run is going to be the same, and you're going to win the game, and at the end nobody plays the game after a while because there are no updates. The gameplay and the map design is very monotonous, that you don't have any variety. The next point is like difficulty. There should be a lot more enemies in the map, which is why the maps which are having more enemies killing, like Tokyo 1 and Marseille 1, are the maps which are mostly higher tier, just because there are more enemies and it's much harder to defend an objective and kill that many amount of enemies than to just run around and kite around forever. That is not fun either. Like always being able to kite the enemies is not fun. There should be a balance and mix between how much you are kiting the enemies and how much you are killing the enemies. That should be a mix. The gameplay should look like that you are also kiting and you are also killing the enemies, and you're creating distance all the time. You are trying out variety of movement options, and trying out different objectives, like trying out different ways to play the game. Basically, that's what variety is, and that would make your gameplay much better. It will add more lifetime to your game. The next is like objectives. As I talked about before, the variety in objectives is very important. I don't have a particular example for this case, but generally the objectives in the game are not that hard that you need the team. I think that's a problem in all the maps. So I'm not going to talk more into this topic, but generally you want to have objectives such that it puts pressure on you to do those objectives, because if you don't do that, then the mission will fail, and that rarely happens. Sometimes the enemies and the gates are also objectives in this game, which is fine. The next point is like storyline and plot. Different options of voice lines and different storylines and character voice lines taking place and different dialogues happening while the map is being progressed is always good. And generally, a good map design also has a good plot, that the storyline makes sense. And Jerusalem, by the way, even New York maps and the Jerusalem maps have good plot line. Like the maps actually have story, and which is quite interesting. They flow into each other. Therefore, those maps are kind of fun to play because you hear those characters talking to each other, and you hear them, yeah, different dialogues. And every time you play the map, the dialogue is randomized, which is fun and it adds to variety. Again, variety is always good. The next point is like good spawning, but I'm specifically for this tier list going to exclude the spawning, because spawning in World War Z has a lot of problems, and in every map spawning is bad. And the bad part about spawning is like the enemies are not scaled according to the number of players, not really linearly. So at the end of the day, you have 4 players but not enough zombies in the game, and this has been always the case since the beginning of the game release. The other thing is like the spawns are a lot of time scripted, and there are a lot of other problems with spawning, and this has been the problem in all the maps. This is why I'm excluding from the tier list, because spawning department and the guys who worked on the spawning in this game haven't done a good job. Bad maps are generally straightforward. A perfect example would be Tokyo 1. It is almost from start to end really straightforward, like moving from point A to B. You have defend the bus, then the bus stops and the horde comes, you kill the horde, then again straight line moving to the gate, and it doesn't have a lot of movement options either. So it becomes a straightforward map, very predictable, and the spawning is also very predictable. This is why Tokyo 1 is still not the best map, even though it looks amazing, because it's straightforward. It's like playing Space Marine 2, moving from point A to B, and every run is almost going to be the same. You either have the DPS or you don't have the DPS, and then you lose. That is all going to be the end equation while playing the map. Next is camping and cheese spots. Every map which has camping possibility of standing and holding in one spot and killing everything is not going to be fun, and it is a bad map design. And this game has particularly a lot of cheese spots. Like at the end of the day, when you have a lot of hours in this game, you will just find it interesting to find all these cheese spots and laugh at them, because Saber Interactive never tried to fix the problem with cheese spots. Like the Jerusalem 1 cheese spot outside the Green Gold's room, the window which you can hold and all the bulls will just go down. They haven't fixed that spot. Like it's a cheese spot, they probably don't even care. And there are a lot of spots like that. In the new maps, there are a lot more cheese spots than the old maps. And this is why the new maps are very boring. Like Kamchatka 3, at the end part, you stand on that wall and you're basically invulnerable from all the zombies. Next is like short and farming. Like a short maps and a farming map is not going to be fun. This is like Marseille 2. It's a very bad map because it's very short. You do nothing. You just beat the first horde and then shoot the missiles, and that's it. That's all there is to that map. Then it's only a farming map. I don't know why the same map has to be the farming map, but I guess it's better that way, that you just skip the map. And I think it's one of the worst maps. Next is like shooting pyramids. This is one of the problems with World War Z game. Standing on platforms and shooting enemies which are no threat to you takes no skill, has never taken any skill in this game. The only skill that can come out of shooting pyramids is that If there are already a lot more enemies on the platforms, then you have to manage the pyramids and you have to shoot some of them so that you avoid certain spawns of them climbing up and becoming fast zombies. That's the only skill which can ever come out of shooting pyramids. But other than that, if you want to shoot pyramids from standing on platforms, then the best mode is the horde mode. But all they have done in the past few years is to create new maps where they have just implemented the horde design maps into the campaign maps, which makes it really unfun because the campaign maps aren't supposed to be the horde maps. The two modes are different for a reason. The campaign maps are supposed to be more chaotic and more movement options, trying out different things and not standing on one platform and then shooting down pyramids. That is the horde mode, and this is why I never play horde mode. And now they have tried to create new maps in World War Z which looks like horde mode. So at the end of the day, when I play the new maps, which I haven't played the new map at all, they look like horde map. I'm never gonna play that because they look like horde maps. Like, I'm not going to pay for a map which literally looks like horde mode. Bad environmental modifiers. This is one of the reasons why a lot of maps in other games as well are bad, because they have bad modifiers. Like Kamchatka 2 map, the heater mechanism is a bad environmental modifier because all it does is basically forces you to camp in those heater rooms. Every single successful run is just going to be camping, and this is one of the bad environmental modifiers. I think it can be made better, of course, but it has to take a lot of work in that, and I'm not going to talk about that here.